Hello, welcome to episode 9 of Heady Set Go. Today, our guest is Jonathan Bohannon. That's how you say it, right?
Yeah, you got it correct.
Anyways, awesome. So, Jonathan is very talented bass player and has been in the Denver scene for a while now. And he is now laying down some bass tracks on our recordings and has been doing a really great job so far. He has laid down for our single Dreamin' that we just put out, and we got another thing in the works that is called Old Friends, Old Habits. It's a new single of ours that will be coming out shortly here, hopefully the next couple of months. The bass is already done, sounding great. If you want to check it out, you can join our email list and you can.
That was a really fun tune, by the way. Uh, I had a lot of fun with that one. I, uh, I really love working with different people, and like your, uh, musical take, has a very like that song had a very like a breadth to it, which I found fun to like harness as I'm assuming this was your intention, so I'm just like my thoughts on it was when I heard it, um, there's a slight tempo increase through the track.
Right.
So at the beginning, it's very like um, if we had a character, they'd be out of gas, and that's kind of what I thought. Like there was that little moment at the beginning of it that I got to grab a little melody, which was cool for me. And
Right.
then really setting in that and focusing on where things landed. And in a lot of the stuff I've done in the past, which like I don't want to say as a downfall or anything like that, but like when we started recording, I feel as kids, um, I don't know if you were of the school that I was from. We had the Tascam 4-track recorder. If any of you guys know that one, it was the most amazing thing and the most ridiculous thing at the same time. There was like two channels, 2/4 inch channels with like line levels for preamp, and then you just had the 4 tracks. But if you were clever, you could bounce those tracks in your home stereo to another track, and you could, get like 8 tracks and all this kind of cool stuff. So as kids, we really, did these takes. It was all take. No one could punch in because it was tape. So you
Right.
just went for it. And I think like there's something to be said for a musician who's insanely on time. I worked with this one dude at actually the blasting room,
Nice.
Dave Preston, and he's amazing. He could tell that we changed the BPM of this tune by like one. He was like, "Did something switch up there?" And I was like, "Wow, you caught that," you know. So what I'm getting out with this, and like even the Saved by Alien stuff I've been writing, there is moments where I feel like I want that breath in the tune,
Right.
and what by that is like tempo change, whatever you want to call it. It gets the listener away from I feel sticking on grids, which is great for a lot of music we listen to. But I feel like you listen to some old recordings, and there's a moment where that tune might vary a little bit in tempo, and I think that really adds to the listening experience. I personally I love a good flaw in a tune, if you want to call it that. But I mean, I dig when something as a player for myself, like um, that definitely was not one take. That was a lot of punches to make what I wanted for your track. But there was a diligent side of me that was like, I wanted it to sound organic. I didn't want it to sound, um, like somebody went and quantized the bass part or something to that effect.
Right.
But at the same time, it doesn't sound like it sounds right where it needs to be. But if looking at the track grid, it was like, okay, I can't even look at you. I have to feel this out.
Sure.
And it was a difficult recording, but I was so glad you gave it to me because I was just starting to get some strength back in my arm, and it was one of those things that like it wasn't an aggressive tune. It was something that just had to be done right. And I hope you like what I did for it, because I really loved your lyrics for it, and it definitely uh, like a lot of music I dig that like tells a story. I feel like that song definitely um, had a lot to say in so many ways.
Hell
So
yeah,
yeah,
man.
really glad you
Really,
let me do that
of
one.
of course. Thank you for playing on it. It's really stoked to mix the bass more. I've been actually trying to re-record piano for it and really get some epic sounds. But yeah, no, I really appreciate that input, and I totally agree. I mean, I think I think there was some survey they did. I don't know where you could find it, but on average, I mean, EDM is so big these days, but I think on average, like most people would rather go see a live band. Maybe not most people, but maybe like 60% of people versus 40% of people would rather go see a live band because it has that human element to it. You know what I mean? It's like the
And
flaws, like you were talking about.
also just an instrument like this thing sitting behind me,
Right.
that I mean, there's I know maybe it's just a bass player thing, but standing in front of a bass and having an amp hit you and feeling that is, I mean, it's A, one of the greatest things ever, but B, I think it's healing. I think there's something to be said about notes and frequency. And I've done a lot of experimenting with that whole 432 thing. If you want to chat about that, I got some crazy stories. But like
Nice.
the essence of an actual acoustic instrument being played into the world, it's kind of like vinyl. You know, I don't have a massive vinyl collection. Like my dad was big on it. He had like the stacks of records that were like, taking up the whole room and stuff. And as a younger man, I hated a lot of his music just because of who, it's your dad. You're like,
Right,
that's the
right.
worst I've ever heard. But like the whole analog thing and hearing things that way. When he passed, I got his record collection, and there were like the ones that he listened to that you're like, oh, you have two of these, and you find the one that's really jacked up, and it was almost cooler to listen to that to me because it was the performance of that record. It's only got about five more plays through it before it's just worn through. And some songs just barely catch, like, and then it finally grabs the tune, like, oh, there you are,
Right.
you know, pops and all that stuff. But there's something I think, really reminds me of him, and I think like live music in general, I think there's that sort of, whatever it is that feeling in a room that heals people and stuff like that. Like I fully like. There's nothing like playing in a live band. There's nothing like seeing a live band. Jazz to me was always something like, and I don't want to get on a huge tangent like that, but when you hear people that are speaking it, and you get that, and it's like hard to even describe what that is, but like, oh man, that guy just totally turned that on its head and changed this up. They just flipped the key, like the Dave Matthews Band. Love that band. But I
Right.
think honestly, when that band is truly flexing its muscles, no one gets it. I think it's like the subtle stuff that they do in the pocket that they carry, that like,
Right.
that's the untaught master stuff. And when you get to see it done live, it's something else, for sure. So
For sure. And it's like I think one of those subtleties, and you mentioned it with the new track that we're working on, is there's a lot of space in between, and some people think what really makes a song is the space in between all the noise. And that song has a lot of, I mean, it's a really slow song to start out, and it does kind of gradually build in tempo, but it's just very slightly, you know and it also, and I'm really stoked to kind of hear the bass more and mix the bass part, because yeah, there's just so much room for bass in that song. And but yeah, when it comes to the live stuff, I think it's also, you know, this might sound really hippy dippy, but it's like the vibration. Like you feel the vibration of the show in your feet. You know what I mean? And the same could be said about EDM. And it's like, I know as a musician, like being on stage and performing in front of someone else, there's nothing else like it. There's no other feeling like it. You're so in it more than probably like your average person, because you're focused on playing the song. So emotionally, you're like really tuned in to what's going on in that moment, and that's what makes it so special. And then for the people in the audience who are having a similar experience too, you know.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like the Frank Zappa sort of mentality of, playing the solo for the record, and I play the solo for the show. I think that's great. I love a band that you never know what you're going to get. I mean, you know what you're going to get, but you don't know what you're going to get.
Right.
Things like that are so cool, Yeah, Space, Prince was a master at that one, Space and Tunes. And yeah, I mean, and that's like, as a bass player, for Saved by Aliens, like my project, it's as hard as I can push the instrument in my way. There's definitely more bass players out there that are way more uh, amazing than I'll ever be. The instrument is so young, and so many people are breaking so much ground on it. But
Right.
with that band, I really try to play like piano parts on bass that are like aggressive, like punk music, or I call it punk jazz, But to me, the big thing is like, it started as just a bass and drum duo, so just having a drummer, which I had an amazing drummer to work with, but we had to make a big sound with two people, and we got into that 432 thing. And if your audience doesn't know, the 432 thing was basically when we first got into temperament and figuring out like musical mathematics. Uh, we looked at different things than we look at now.
Right.
We all look way too much here and not enough up there. But at the same time, like,
Hmm.
you go to some where there's no light pollution, and you look up at the stars and you see this amazing things. Like, we're not very far in Colorado from some really cool places, like up in um, where is it? Fairplay.
Right.
I out there, and it's the South Park sort of joke and all that kind of thing. Like, it's, South Park, Fairplay,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
at the night, if you look out and you let your eyes adjust, you see the Milky Way, and you see all this cool stuff that you just don't see in the city. And in a way, it's kind of sucks, because I feel like we're all not exposed to something so amazing. And
Right.
uh, so you look back, and like, they had these reflecting pools, and everybody was focused on something like bigger, like we're a part of something, is my theory on that. And through that, the magical mathematics that create our universe. So 432 hertz was a great number in my head, because it deals with the circumference of the Earth is relative to 432. The distance between the Earth and the moon is divisible by 432. The
Huh.
circumference of the moon is divisible by 432. The circumference of the sun is divisible by 432. The distance between those planets, all divisible by 432. That's why we have equinoxes and planetary alignments that black out, all the light, and eclipses, and all this magical stuff. It's like watching, it's like being inside a giant watch, and watching these gears turn to me. And with that thought came the whole idea of the 432. So 440 generally are typical music we listen to. So 440 waves per second for an A. So 432 is only 8 hertz difference, so 8 less waves. And
Huh.
a lot of people, I think that that's no big deal. But you think about the opera singer that can break the glass because she hits the right frequency.
Right.
You know, sound as a weapon. The government's used it as a weapon. James Brown was a weapon. Um,
Right.
but so with this whole idea, was just to me, well, two things. Um, when I got into that, it was from this hippie dude named Scooter Barnes. So if you're in the Denver music scene, you need a guy to fix your amp, he might be somebody you call. And he's a cool dude in some respects, has just a crazy outlook at life. And you gotta love the
Nice.
dude. He'll turn you on to some crazy stuff, but also it's like, you know, um, yeah. So I Scooter and I had some problems at random points back in the day, and I my new outlook is trying to never say anything negative, and I don't have anything negative to say about Scooter, but I will say he's somebody that gave me a golden nugget of knowledge, and I may not have thought as much of it coming from him at one point in my life, but
Right.
now I can't enough for turning me on to this. So the 432 start, he's like, jam with this thing, 8 hertz difference. I was like, I don't care. I just want to play bass, So,
Right. Right.
and I didn't really think anything of it when I went home. I figured out how to do that with the tuner, and I had this really cool cattle dog mix named Hurley. It was when like Lost was going on, and Hurley was that cool character on Lost. I was like, he's always happy. The dog's always happy.
Right. Right.
So notice if I was playing in that frequency or that my bass was tuned there, the dogs would kind of be hanging out in the room with me. I was like, that's pretty cool.
Huh.
And then so with the band, I was like, well, it's just me and a drummer, no one else to be in tune with. So I'm gonna knock on the 432 door and just see what happens. And I started doing a lot of looping, and I noticed I don't know the exact term for it, but it's like a harmonic cancellation, I want to say. So it's like this frequency hits this way, and this one that you've also played is hitting this way, and the two kind of mash each other out. And so it's like how noise canceling headphones work. You know what I mean? They play a frequency that the outside hears, and then
Huh.
it dissipates that frequency in your ears or whatever. Really cool technologies and things, but looping with bass, big frequencies and things like that, and you'd get 3 or 4 parts going. Even if I was really trying to thin the bass out and stuff, there was this effect that would happen that would, and this is maybe in my head or something like that, but I felt like if you've ever been playing with the band and then you go, like you have to go like to the bathroom or something, and you shut the door that you guys are playing in, and that sounds like, and it
Right.
like sounds different. Like there's something between you and that. So to
Sure.
me, that's what was happening with the looping. And when I did 432, I felt like I could get more loops in with that not happening. And then I saw this crazy stuff where people were taking like sand on this like basically a piece of paper and throwing a speaker underneath of it, and they would have like this sort of amp playing a frequency and this like thing that they could oscillate the frequency. And when they would hit things that are in 440, the sand would bounce around and do shit.
Right.
Sorry for the cut.
No,
Um,
you're good.
and then I'm trying not to cuss these days because I feel that people take you more seriously if you don't cuss. You
All
know what
right.
I mean?
Sure.
Maybe that's,
Sure.
but yeah, the sailor used to be a big part of my life, so try not to go there.
Right
But
on.
so 440, the sand would be moving around, and rhyme or reason, just obviously it's moving. But in 432, there would actually be geometric patterns that would start to form in the sand.
No way.
So it's like a huge like eureka moment. Like, wow, that's so cool. Like, why wouldn't I want to make the pretty tones and pretty shapes with my bass or something? And so we um, every musician has a day job. So I was in the meat crew at Whole Foods in Cherry Creek, and learned how to cut a tenderloin, all sorts of great stuff. Part out a bird. Learned a lot about cooking. Great job for those things. Horrible
Nice.
job in respects, but there was this kid, and he was autistic, I believe, something to this effect. I don't want to put a label on anyone, but he definitely was doing his own gig, and he would have
Sure.
his headphones on, and his hands would be clasped, and he'd be following directly behind his mom at the store, and he'd just be like rocking out to his music and stuff.
Huh.
So we were a friend of mine had a CBD like marketing business over off Santa Fe, and it was like the art walk. And so it was like, so what are you gonna do for the art walk? And he's like, what are you talking about? And I was like, dude, like you bought a great business, and they do this awesome stuff where they open up the street for like people, and they, all these galleries, so it's like a big thing. He's like,
Yeah.
oh man, think about that. And so he had a friend that did spray paint art and like portraits of rappers and stuff like that. I was like, dude, that's it. Like, get that guy to do a thing and then let me play. So we had my drummer and myself playing bass, and then we had a friend of mine, Crystal Plant from Pinnacle, was rapping, and but I did it all on 432. And so we were doing rage stuff because I had this like way of like doubling the bass part and having an octaver on the distorted side of it, so it sounded like a guitar, and then the bass was coming through on like a sub thing, so it sounded like thick and crunchy. And so we are playing like rage stuff to all this other junk, and then just kind of laying in beats, and he would start rapping like rap songs everybody knew. So at one point the crowd was singing louder than we were, and I was like, wow, this is awesome. And we were doing some Ice Cube song, and then kind of broke into something really heavy. And I noticed the crowd kind of gets like washed away, and this kid's coming right for us, and I'm like, yo, it's Whole Foods guy, and he's like walking out into the drum set. And I mean, to the point where the drummer he just like holds out his hand in the stick, because he's like, I don't want you to take out the hi-hat on your head. The parents run up, and they were like like started to grab him. I was like, nah, let him rock out, let him have fun, And so we finished our thing, and the parent came over, and she was like, hey, someone wants to talk to you, can we hang out? Yeah, totally. So we had this intense conversation where we like held my hands and had this real face thing, and then he pulled out this paper from his mom, and it was like all these words he pointed to as thank you, all this stuff. I was like, wow, that's cool, And the parents are like crying at this point. I'm like, what's up? And they carry that piece of paper with them all the time, but he doesn't care about like chatting with other people, like whatever,
Sure,
which
sure.
Same way. But he liked what he heard and ran for it. I guess he's like changing songs, and they just like beelined. And so to me, there was again with that frequency. And then one of the craziest things that happened with it, there was all these like just weird little things that would happen with it. Hanging out with the Victor Wooten and his brother. I drove Vic and Reggie from Telluride to the Montrose Airport.
No way.
Cool car ride in my life. Yeah, Vic.
Nice.
I got to his roadie for the Telluride Jazz Fest. So I
hell yeah,
was $120 at the time, and I was like carrying around a like heavy 410 cabinet to help him like set up for a clinic, and nice. I got to watch Hertz, which was amazing. His band straight up didn't cuss, didn't say bad things about anything. There was no talk of when we speak, we create. You know what I mean?
Right.
You vibe in the room, all this kind of stuff, and there's like certain times, like in certain people that you're around, we're all around, and I feel like the conversation goes south, and it goes on these heavy subjects, and
yeah.
A little side note: when we're going back, the Reggie, Victor Wooten's brother, asked me where I'm from, and I was like, oh, I'm from Aurora, Colorado, and the shooting just happened with Batman and all that stuff, and I started talking about it for a second, and Vic says in the back of the car, he says, hey, do you know why Geronimo never got captured by the federales? No idea. He's like, oh, because he watched the birds. The birds and the hawks told him that people were coming and stuff. And I didn't first, but he abruptly changed that subject, and basically like, what a rad dude. That was like, you know what? I don't even want that around me. Boom, gone. And, in the what was the Olympics were going on at the time, and there was that beautiful woman, Gabby Douglas, and she like won everything. And so I'm like hanging out with Vic, and I mean, it was like eating food, hanging out, listening to their conversation, fly on the wall. And he says, yeah, you rearranged her letters in her last name. It's USA Gold. And I was like, how do you
What?
like up with, yeah, Douglas? You know what I mean? And I'm just like, dude, what was another one? Hope, Heaven on Planet Earth.
Nice.
Um, you know, oh God, there's just all these, but it's like words. Like you think about what you say, and again, it's a big part of what we create. You create what you talk about and all these other things. And I think
Sure.
that's scary and amazing at the same time. So I always joke with people and tell me, yeah, I'm writing a Grammy award winning record right now, but I'm totally 100% serious. That's going to save the planet, you know?
Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
But yeah, so we're talking about the 432 things. And that's when I was like, when I brought it up, it was like keys to the clubhouse. It was like, yo, you know what's up? Come over here, let's talk. And so we were talking just about all this, crazy stuff. And he turned me on to his book, Beginner's Guide to Creating the Universe. And it's like I can't look around without seeing numbers now. And that like blows me away. Like totally changed my um outlook on math and all this kind of stuff. I was like, why didn't we teach it like this? With like art.
Right.
Instead, we taught like numbers, like this phone weighs this amount, it costs this much. When you bought it with cash, you got this change back.
Right.
Instead of thinking like cathedrals and that they were actually built around the idea of musical symphonies, and like you look at these beautiful buildings, there's a reason why they're so beautiful. And it's they use the idea of like octaves, fifths, and actually music in their construction. So if you look at a lot of churches and things like that, especially the
Right.
big window arches, where the arches fall, archways, all that kind of stuff. So it's pretty awesome. But so he's talking about the 432 speed of light, visible by 432, all this crazy stuff, and then look at the license plate in front of us, says 432 on it, like boom,
What? Damn.
yeah. And the funniest thing is, there's been like four instances now in my life where I've been like having the worst day or something traumatic would happen. And I'm like, oh, like this sucks. Like, how am I going to get through it? And I'll see a 432 license plate in front of me. And I'm like, oh, I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be right now. And yeah, I mean, like, that's a crazy math thing to think that follows you around. But once you start seeing those numbers and you're aware of it, you start to see more stuff. You see harmony, disharmony. And it's like artists, it sucks being an artist sometimes because you see all this shit. You see
Right.
the good, bad, and if you have a lot of like empathy towards situations, I believe that's what I'm supposed to say, not apathy and empathy. What weird words,
Right.
huh?
Right.
But like I don't know how you can't care. I don't know how people can't think that it's such a miracle that we're here, such a miracle that you and I are speaking.
Of
All
course.
those
Yeah. Yeah.
things. So when you look at the math of it, it's like I don't know. That opened up a lot of things in my life that I felt like there was a much bigger picture than I'll ever understand. But I'm definitely like, and not to be all ego, like I'm important, but we're all important. And I think that's
Definitely.
something that, you know, um, but yeah, music has been crazy in the sense of it's given me uh, a strange life of travel to playing in front of people that, like even just a local band. I've heard people say things about how something that I did or was part of, I'm just a bass player. I'm not the guy singing it. I'm usually, not that like, you know what I mean? Like we're not the guys, we're the
Right.
guys that just
Sure.
put some back, you know what I mean? But like being on the outside and looking into that and to have somebody say like, wow, like that song you wrote got me through some shit, it's like,
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah.
Like,
That's. I think that's the most rewarding part of being a musician, for me,
yeah,
too. At
it's
least, is when you get that feedback of, you know, like you help me in some sort of way with what you were creating, and I want to stop our conversation for a sec because I want to go back to what we were just talking about, and there's a couple of things there that I really align with, and getting some new perspective here for what you're talking about. And first of all, I just want to say that I really appreciate and love your spiritual outlook on music and life, and that, and I've kind of grown more that way as I got has have become an older musician. But that's it's interesting. I think in esoterics, if you will, when you're speaking, like you were saying, I'm writing this Grammy Award winning album right now, and that's the manifestation. Or some people might call that a spell because you're spelling out words. And I think that's where the root of that word comes from, where like someone's casting a spell. It's because they're manifesting it through their speech or through writing. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
A lot of people don't write anymore. I
Yeah.
journal. I think it's important to write stuff down. Um, you know, um, yeah. I guess we could back up and talk about the heavy, one of my heavy subjects going on right now. But
Well,
breaking,
oh
you
yeah,
know,
let's get to your arm thing. But I just want to say that on the 432 hertz thing, I'm definitely getting a new perspective on that, because that's something that I've heard about a lot, and I know other musicians who have been like trying to delve into that world of tuning to 432.
but
And
see,
and go
I
ahead.
think again, like the biggest thing is what do you want to do with it? Do you know what I
Right.
mean? 432 is great, but what do you want to do with it? Like I just in my head when we speak about like this like sacred tuning, whatever you want to call it, like to me it's like this is your weapon as a musician is 432. How
Yeah,
do you
that's a
want to
good
use
that's a good
you
way
know
to
what I
look
mean?
at it.
To dive into it and mess with it. It I don't think it's like playing with the Ouija board kind of dangerous or anything like that.
Right. Right.
I definitely think it's like one of those things like you should have a respect for it. You know what I mean? In some respects, like music is church. You know what I mean? Like I don't know what I'm trying to say, Quinn, but like in a sense of like I think that if it's like an iceberg. A lot of people just see the top of it, but I really can't stress enough like what's under the surface is amazing.
Right.
You know,
It's it's
um,
it's a sacred thing. Treat it as such is kind of what you're
yeah.
saying.
Well, music like people that don't want to learn theory, like
Right.
I understand like you know what I've yet to get in the position. No, I take that back. I have gotten that position where somebody says play exactly this and they have it written on a piece of paper and you have to figure that out and it's not tab and it's
Right.
not bass and it's treble clef and I can barely read treble clef and I have to mark my way. So like there's those guys that have said how far would you get by in the English language if you couldn't read or write it? That's scary. You know what I mean?
Sure.
How would you order food? How would you express certain things? What if you lost your voice and couldn't? So like reading and writing, I know that that isn't the end all of it, isn't end all to do theory, but I think like those are starts of the opening up the door that makes music. If music was a person, music would be like, oh, you learn what my favorite colors were. Thanks. Or you learn the name of the colors. Like artist, how would it be if you had to paint and you couldn't make colors? Like, if somebody had the
Right.
crayon box, you're like, yeah, any day I can make this great stuff. And you're nailing it all out. And then somebody, hey, here's the primaries. Go to
Right.
town. Like, well, you know what I mean? Like, those are the things. Like, I get the expression on all the other sides of it, but there's like a love that gives you all that foundation. Like you want to learn, like, I'm not a piano player, but I understand like what one is now. And like, not only that, when I look at the keyboard, it doesn't look like a monstrosity of notes. I can
Right.
see my way through it, and that's because I've studied that thing enough to understand it. But, at the same time, it's like, like people that, and this one is like my own personal, like, really, dude? Like somebody that says I've learned like 5 songs in one night. Yo, dude, I learned 5 songs in one night. Well, first of all, you're really discrediting that person that wrote them because, like, I see you play the notes, but the feel sucks. The time's horrible. You
Right.
know, you sped your way through something you should have really took some time to learn. The people that, and for me, like playing slow is hard. When
Yeah.
this reconstruction of myself has really changed my attitude about that. But I honestly think it's like we spend all our time wanting to play on that outskirts level, we're really just killing it. But all those things come with fundamentals. And it's not like I'm driving around, thinking about like, well, if you play that note, I play this note, minor third, this, whatever, this works over the top of this. If I decided that I wanted to use a whole note scale over the thing to solo over your tune, I'd use this. When I, but at the same time, like you gave me that song in the beginning of it, that bass thing that I played. So that song, the notes that you used into it, you used an E major into that G.
Right.
Well, that G automatically wants to pull it minor, and then there was a couple notes that
Yeah.
were fitting both of those, and that's what I chose to use the roll into that note,
Right.
because I'm staying away from all these things, and I'm going to color everything you're going to hear in the next two chords because I understand what's supposed to be there. So it's like things like that. I could have leaned that towards an E minor and no one really would have thought about it. The ear would have been fine with it and all that stuff. But in my head, I know that like what I did was cooler because it thought around what you were doing and said, cool, I'm going to work extremely in your confines here. And I'm going to give you this really cool thing that's going to whiz through all this stuff here. You know what I mean? And melodically pull the listener into that next chord when it's not really in the key.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And so, that's awesome. You know what I mean?
Totally.
It's not like modulation, but there was a couple notes there that like, they work together, but if you use certain ones of them, you're going to have a lot of clash in that melody. But knowing how to orchestrate your way through that, there it is, because I've took the time to learn how to make orange.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so like that's the thing is like in counting, like, dude, your stuff would be a nightmare if I couldn't count. Like
Right.
that which I ended up thinking about it in 13 was the only way I could play that. But like, dude, like such a cool groove, and it's like you can feel that drop and when the horn shifts and all this kind of stuff, and you're like, yeah, that's on it. But like if you were just thinking in a 4/4 mindset,
Right.
you would get that spot in that tune and fall apart. You'd be like, I got it, and then it would shift and you'd be away from it, and
Yeah.
again, it's that listening, but it's listening and building those tools that when I hear it, I'm like, oh, okay, here it is. And I'm still learning more about that all day long, like
Right.
melody and stuff that can be played on top of stuff. Like again, your little thing that I could borrow these notes and make this work without touching things normally maybe a bass player would. So
Right.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it pays off to know the theory for sure. I think, and I think there's like a few really gifted musicians who didn't learn any theory and somehow they just figured it
But
out by ear.
go in
But
there, like I think Hendrix said, like Hendrix knew theory.
right,
Hendrix
his
knew
own way. Yeah.
he was on another level of theory,
Right.
and yeah, again, but think about how badass somebody could be if they're like that player and they're like, no, I want to be open to everything. I'm going to learn all that.
Yeah.
But we have a lot of people that are like, I'm not excited about the way I'm playing,
Right.
but if I learn anything else, that's going to hinder my creativity, and it's just like, dude, I break the rules all day long,
Yeah.
music, but
Well,
I don't do it. If the speed limit's 35, I might go 45, but I'm not going to do 90.
right. For sure. Yeah, and I always say that you have to know the rules to break the rules. You know what I mean? And
why not love music enough to know all that about it? Like,
yeah.
like that thing is like, like my basses, I know the woods they're made out of, that 5-string behind us sitting there that has 125 notes on it. Lowest one's a D, the highest one's a G there.
Nice.
I know it well,
Of course.
and it's like, but again, like, it's like what you want to do with music, like if you want to read tab, which I have no problem with, and you want to learn these songs and that's your gig, cool. But if you're looking at doing that other thing in it, and like to me, my bass is like my companion. It's been with me through my whole life. So why
Right.
wouldn't I want to know all about it?
Yeah.
Who made one?
Of course.
What was the big thing with Fender? Who made the first, like the first six string to, all these things. Why not listen to all those great players? Like when I first started playing, everybody was like into Flea, which love Flea,
Right.
but all the guys that we heard, I'm only naming Flea on this. Let's see if I can even like Flea, Claypool, was it Feely or something like that from Korn was doing the slap thing. I mean, there's a lot of great bass players, but only those guys in that genre that we heard about through MTV and this sort of thing. And
Right.
then I heard Jocko through, the jazz guys. The jazz guys are all listening to this dude, and I
Right.
hated it.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
this stuff sucks. And then when I started like understanding jazz a little bit more, when I got rooted into where jazz came from and listened to some of the cool things where it grew, then I listened to Jocko and totally got the sauce. I was like, oh my goodness, he's the best.
Yeah.
We're
Yeah.
for all these other cats, but yeah,
It's
I
pretty
don't
well.
know. Like I'm lucky to have something that I can continue to be a student my whole life for,
For sure.
and have an eagerness of that. Like I can't wait to learn something new, or
Yeah.
discover new something.
I think some musicians have this unfortunate attitude of I've learned everything that I need to learn to create the style of music that I want to create. And I used to be one of those people too. It was like, all right, I can play pop punk beats all day and I could do really fast fills on the drums. And it wasn't until I got into college that I had more professors, like music professors, try, like showing me jazz and like and all this. And then you do kind of, the more you expose yourself to other things, the more you see, oh, I could bring these elements into my main genre. Like you said, you're
Yeah,
doing like a punk jazz thing, and it's like, I mean, who wants to do punk anymore? Like there's so many. I mean, there's great punk music coming out, but creating this whole new genre based on your exposure to jazz, um, it creates something really
thing
cool.
though at the time, like digging into what it was. You look at like bass players just in the punk sense, right? Hand position, like over thumb over the top, didn't really matter. It's just grabbing that note, and that's
Right.
where I started. And it was like the pick and all downstrokes, no upstrokes. Like and you can hear it in the tone, like the attack is
Sure.
different. And like when you do the upstrokes, it just, it sounds different. So there's a side of like I think even just like a simple Ramones tune or something to really dig in and play it like the record or as close as you can get to it. Because I think like and that's something I always loved doing was just like jamming with bands, like sounds funny, but it's like, how many bands did I got to play with? Like, you have no idea. I've got to play with Miles Davis. I've gotten to play with all these guys. Now it's in my house and it's the stereo on, but I'm still jamming with Miles,
Right.
you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
I think that trying to set in those things like I learned a lot of James Brown recently was something that's helped me like get my hand back. And thinking about that, I was like, I can learn, like, again, I could learn 10 songs in a day, but I chose one and I would sit there and like sit in it and just be like, I want to be able to play it slow. I want to be able to play it fast. And I also want to be able to play it in a different key if I choose to.
Right.
And so those are my goals on all those. And those thinking that I watched that movie, the James Brown movie. It was on Netflix. And
Yeah.
I've
Yeah.
horrible movies over the last 3 months. But it was cool and it wasn't what I wanted for it, but they sort of mentioned some players in there, and there's this scene which I really hope is true, like in my heart of hearts, because I want to like if to me it just makes him look like just a badass. He's with his band and they're rehearsing this thing, and he's like basically wanted the drums to come in early and this thing to change and stuff, and the horn player starts talking. He's like, kind of like he starts in on his lesson. He's like, what's this? And he points to the snare drum. Well, that's a drum, Mr. Brown. He's like, okay, cool. Points to the guitar. He's like, what's that? He's like, it's a guitar. He's like, nope. Points to this other guy. He's like, that's a drum. Cool. What are you holding there? It's not a sax, it's a drum. And you start thinking about that, and that's this band. Like, you don't fill. You don't like, if you fill, you're in the wrong band. You're not supposed to fill in James Brown. You are
Right.
supposed to be like a slave to that groove, like your life depended on it. Like, if you
Yeah.
played the wrong note, like a gun would go off and you would be done. That would be it. That would be the end of you because you played it wrong. And
Yeah.
that same philosophy is punk. You know what I mean? In my head.
Sure.
Like, it wasn't about how good you were, but it was about playing with this conviction that, like, again, you play that wrong note, man, you're done. You're gonna die. That's how serious this is, right? You know,
Right.
and so, like, that dedication to, like this, I think Flea called it like ninja ready to commit Harry Carey, playing that intent, is really what I learned from punk rock. And then jazz taught me how to speak. So to me, it's a combination of where I've always walked, like, uh, everything I have to say here is dire. Like, it's so important to my soul. So I have to be that, intense about it. But at the same time, like, I had to study, I had to learn all that stuff to be able to speak it. You know what I mean? Like, that
Absolutely.
language uh, isn't given, it's earned, and, there's some cats like that I played with, the young kids in my ska band. We had a ska band when I was a kid, and like, the keyboard player was like Doogie Howser, graduated crazy early from high school. He could play anything, like, seriously anything, and not only like it, like, kill it, like feel would be there, the whole thing. And
Right.
he looked like a total, like little punk kid. Like, we had this. I worked at the record store in the Hemet Valley Mall, and this they had like a organ place, and it was all just like high priced, shitty organs. Here I'm cussing, trying not to. It just didn't happen. Um,
It's all
and
good.
uh, and I was like, dude, go in there and play something, because that guy would, like, you would go in there and look, and he would immediately jump up and make sure you didn't play that piano because, somebody else is going to own it or whatever. So he came up there and, with his, like, chain wallet and all this stuff, sat down and started playing. And the guy, you could tell, jumped up, and he was like, basically stood up and realized this kid can play better than I'll ever be able to play in my life,
Wow.
and that was,
Yeah.
you know, and we had two rehearsals on the weekends. So we'd have the ska band with the horns and all the good stuff, and then we'd have the punk band afterward. And I swear we could play all day long with the ska band. No one would care. Everybody loved it. Neighbors loved it. Punk band, we'd get like 20 minutes into rehearsal, and the cops were called.
Right.
And
Right.
there's a friend of ours had a band. They called it 415 because it was the police disturbance of noise. The
Right.
415. They called their band that. I thought that was pretty funny. But yeah, and it was like, I remember the cops coming to our house one time, and my mom, like, being cool and, like, telling them off, like, these kids could be doing worse stuff. They're here
Right.
playing their. It's not late,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. For sure.
So, you know, oh,
Yeah. Yeah. And you said earlier that you're not a singer and you're not like the front man or whatever, but I think you're a player that sings with your instrument. You sing with the bass, you know, and yeah, if anyone ever gets a chance to check your band out, Saved by Aliens, I saw you live. What it was maybe like 6 months ago,
yeah,
and
at the bar standard, and we were doing they gave us a time limit for that show, and we had to cram in. I made it two songs. One was like 30 minutes long, the other one was like 20.
it
I mean,
was
we didn't give you guys a break at all. It was so
no,
much fun.
I mean it
We
was
did,
awesome.
yeah. We introduced ourselves, and we had a musical theme in the background of like a musical tag that would happen like every three songs, and it was split up the way we did it into um, basically like movements. Like, for I really love classical, and how classical has like the sonatas and I'm sorry, the concertos, excuse me, like, they're movements that are arranged together for this whole thing. So
Right.
we um the first record we're doing, which is really sad to say, um and because I broke. Well, I feel like we need to talk about that a little bit.
Yeah.
I broke my arm on November 6th on the way
Yeah.
home from a gig, and uh, I was going to get some food or water at a gas station, and I had my bass in the car and my 210 in the back seat, pedals in the trunk, and this little Aguilar head that was in this like bag. And I thought I left it at the gig, and so I looked in the back seat, and it fell in where the floorboards were,
Huh.
where the passenger would put their feet, and
Right. Right.
that deviation totally ruined my life. So I was like, oh, cool, it's there. So I don't drive much. I really work so close to where I live that I could walk, rehearsals, things like this, but it's not something I normally do. So I bought this little tape because I have an old tape deck, and you can put the tape and it attaches to the phone. So the phone can
Right.
like give you love, and you can listen to whatever you want to listen to when you're driving. And it's the most amazing thing in the world. And I'm like, I've had a iPhone seriously for like a year and a half, like 2 years. I was like flip phone up until like, you know, recently. So it's not something that's like, like, so now this new thing, I can drive around and listen to my stuff. I'm stoked.
Yeah. Yeah.
That deep and left the keys in the ignition, and I get out of the car and I shut the door, and I realize what I just did. And I'm not, I don't want to call any area a bad area, because that like has a lot of connotations of a lot of stuff, like, and I don't want to walk around feeling scared for anything. But when your gear's in your car and that's your livelihood and your kid basically, you kind
Right.
of lose it. So I made a really bad decision, and I decided that I could break the window out by kicking it, because I thought that windows broke easy. They don't. If you guys are ever trying a window by kicking it, is probably not gonna. You're just gonna mess yourself up.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I slipped, like with my foot that was planted from the kick on like some gravel or something,
Oof.
and landed on my elbow.
Oof.
So I shattered my elbow basically, and I'm sitting there, well, laying on the ground, realizing like I may never play music again, and all these thoughts are going through my head. And I look down, and there's um, it wasn't quite a compound fracture, but pretty close to it. The skin had a protuberance, so it was actually a bone coming up out of it. So I straightened my arm and pushed the bone back in. That was probably the most painful thing I think I've ever
Oof.
done. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
and immediately kind of went into shock afterward, even more so. And kind of the fight or flight took over. And I realized like a couple things, like, hey, if I call an ambulance, now I'm leaving all my gear and my car and all my stuff. So I was like, okay, you're not dying. You're gonna be cool. And so I started looking around for something to break the window, and I found a brick, like a landscaping brick. And I hit it once, it didn't break. Hit it again, didn't break. And this whole time's moving the arm around, while I'm
Oof.
trying to.
Yeah. Yeah.
So third time busted it. Brick goes flying in the car, unlock the door, and I get in the car and try to like set my arm somewhat straight. And I have to use this phone to unlock the phone, this hand to unlock the phone, all this crap. So I finally get my phone unlocked, and I call my wife, and I was like, basically, hey, I broke my arm. And I don't know if I was even like able to speak. It was so bad, its pain was ridiculous. And I'm fighting traffic for like 40 minutes to get home with my arm broken. And so I was just like, every stoplight intense, like, and I was like praying, man, like like I don't want this to be the end of my music, man. Like
Right.
if I just my last note with the reggae gig up in Evergreen, like I didn't want to go out like that. Like,
Sure.
it's like uh so we had a gig the next week, and I'm like, I call my sax player, I'm like, hey, I just broke my arm, I think, like I need you to like cancel this stuff on Facebook, and because like my first thought is like, I don't know, like somehow take care of my band, like that's gonna fix everything.
Right.
And then so I get home, and like we get my gear out of my car, uh, pedaled, all the stuff downstairs. Left the cabinet in the back of it. Just went to the hospital. So grabbed a N95, put that on because I've been in the hospital, and the COVID thing scares the shit out of me. All this other stuff.
Right.
So, kind of put that stuff on, get to the hospital, and I'm just destroyed. I'm like, you know, like if you put worst fear in my life, like dude, you write out your top 10, like something like this would be definitely in there, and so I get in there, and I got the N95 and it's got the little breathing thing. So they were like, we need to put something, I'm like, it's fine, whatever. So the guy helped me. I didn't have an arm, so I sit there, and I'm like, at this point, just like, I don't know if I was crying. I don't know what I was doing. I was just like still like in shock a little bit, pain starting in at this point, like legitimately pretty bad.
Right.
And so they brought me back, and they were like, it could be dislocated. Like, oh, no way. I knew that something was just awful by what I had to do. And so they had these x-ray people, and there was one team of x-ray people in I was at a Swedish medical center,
Okay.
and so they had to take my sweater off, and knowing what I know now, like, okay, you guys, if you ever break an arm, like, there's great videos to watch about how to put on a shirt and all these things, but basically, like, whatever arm's broken, you put through first, and then maneuver the rest of the clothes around. So first in, last out. Well, that's not how we did this. And so when we're taking the sweater off, because I wanted to keep it instead of just cutting it off, the pain was insane. Like
I'm
the
sure.
movement, broken bones, all this kind of stuff. And so I let out some pretty crazy screaming, and then some people came in. Are you okay? Like, no, I'm not okay at all.
Right.
Finally, the x-ray people came, and they at the same time were going to give me drugs, like, to help me with the pain. And they came, and they were like, well, we'll just come back. And I was like, no, you're just like one of you. There's other people that need this stuff. Just let's do it. And so they pulled my arm up and maneuvered this, like where they needed to x-ray it. And it was like, oh, it sucks so bad. And then the one dude came in. They were like, well, we can wrap it now. I'm like, well, how much more do you have to move it to get it to where it needs to be for, or do you want, to take drugs? I was like, I'd rather, like, where are we at with this stupid thing? And they're like, well, we need to move it probably like 3 more inches. It's like, fine, just do it, so no any painkillers whatsoever, go through this. And
Damn.
and then they gave me Demerol or something to that effect. Now,
Right.
I no, Dilaudid. That's what they gave me, Dilaudid. And Dilaudid really took away a lot of things, but it told me that, like, because I was scared to take things, and they were basically told me that if you take these things and you're in a lot of pain, they go to your pain receptors, and you don't get high.
Right.
It's when you take them and you're not having pain, you get high, and that's how you get the addiction and things. So, because opioids scare the shit out of me. And so they gave me this pill, and it was like, yeah, I could deal with this now, but it still sucked. I ended up walking home from the emergency room just to try to clear my head because I was just, like, destroyed. My arm is gone. And I had it happened on Saturday, had Sunday in limbo, not knowing the outcome or what was going to happen. I knew I needed surgery. I knew I needed to speak to an orthopedic trauma team. So they told me this Stephen Moore, Dr. Stephen Moore, who is at the Centrum Surgical Center, as well as at the Swedish hospital. They do a lot of work with him. And they're, like, #1 in trauma, which, thank God, I got to a place that was like, we deal with you all day long, you're just assembly line this dude out of there, but
Right.
So that Monday I got in for a consultation, and it was like, yeah, and I couldn't even look at it. I was like, there's your arm. in the X-ray. I was like, I can't even.
Yeah. You
Okay.
can't even.
No, it was just the worst. And they gave me a bunch of shit to take, and I was like, I know I'm gonna have surgery, so I'm not gonna take anything but Advil until surgery.
Damn.
And so the swelling started going down. I went and saw them. They were like, yeah, we're gonna fix you. And he just says, we're gonna install a plate and some hardware, as he put it. And as like a carpenter, I'm like, hardware. That means so many things.
Right.
I can't even deal. And so he, it was just like a matter of fact. I got you. Don't worry. It's cool conversation. And then I get to, the couple more days of healing up. And so at this point, because some of the things that were broken were attached to muscles, and the muscles are not where they're supposed to be anymore, and they're going into spasm. And that is basically was one of the worst things, because when they would spasm, I couldn't like touch it because it was in all this stuff, but it would just be like the worst. And so Thursday, my sax player actually drove me to go, get the surgery, and then I have health insurance, all these other things, but like I didn't know that I needed to pay like this big upfront cost. And so when I
Damn.
walked in, I was like, "Are you for real?"
Right.
Like I don't have that, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
then so we like figured out how we could do it. And we got money on a card, so I'm like sitting there like getting ready to go into surgery, trying to figure out how to pay for it. And then the they they were doing some like repairs on the building, so like hammering, sawing, like some sort of miter saw or some stuff. And I was like, oh god, I hope that is not the surgery room. That I'm hearing like power tools and stuff. Like, no, that's not what's going on. Somebody's remodeling. I'm like, thank god, because I didn't want to think that like somebody got their arm from like Home Depot, or something.
They're
Let me
taking
figure
your
out.
arm open with a sawzall or
Yeah,
something.
exactly. So I didn't take anything that day. So the pain was getting really bad, and the surgery kept, bumping up in time. So they like wanted to give me morphine, and I was like, nah. I'm just like, because that's gonna mess with the anesthesiologist. I'm like, oh, Kang, it's 45 more minutes. I got this. And I was just like coming out of my skin a bit. When I got back, when they wheeled me back, and it was like one of those things, like scared to death, and they got me to this room, and it had like a nice view, and it's like beautiful sky for a second. I remember that, and there's a bunch of people in that room, and I made a joke about my tattoo work, if they could keep it cool. Hey, don't fuck up my tattoo, basically. uh,
Right.
Somebody laughed, and then the anesthesiologist told me, he's like, hey, I just gave you something, and you'll be relaxing. And I remember laying down on that thing and just being like, this thing is wicked uncomfortable. Just felt like, laying on steel. And the nurse's hands, when she did my IV to when she helped me with some things, were very like loving and tender and like, I got you, kind of thing. The surgeon hands that whipped me to the next table, like from my gurney to the table, the operating table, were very rough and just like, get over here, you know what I mean? And in a way, I'm glad. Like, don't have sympathy for this dude. Like, get the work done and let's move on.
Right.
Um, so I woke up hours later, had asked him how it went. I felt horrible, and drove home, and it was it was a horrible 3 weeks of just continuous pain.
Sure.
Basically, they came in through about here, actually about up here, all the way through back here.
Damn.
And so I don't know how many sutures they put in. I mean, they probably full roll. I don't know. But so went through this healing period. The Monday after Thanksgiving, I went to get the stuff out, and to kind of see what happened. So I told the nurse, I was like, can you just like take a picture of it on my phone? I don't really want to know, I'll get to it when I see it. And so I asked her, I was like, well, what did they do? Now that was a hard thing to hear. They're like, well, we put a plate and 10 screws in your arm. And I was like, wow. And then I saw a picture of it, and that destroyed me. Like it was, people were like, "Oh, you got in a fight with a hardware store," making jokes like that. I'm like, I kind of offended, but like at the same time, but I mean, uh, it was bad. It was really bad, and the talk around the table prior to surgery, everyone was like, "Oh, like you had to break your arm, dude. That's the way to do it." Thank God they were like that because they really gave me a lot of hope for the situation. But someone let the cat out of the bag. One of the last sessions, they were like, "No, dude, you really did wrong on yourself and really hurt yourself really bad. You're lucky to get everything that you've gotten back." When I first got it out, they were basically told me, because he knew that my music was really important to me, and it was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. My hand swelled
Right.
up so much from the surgery that all my calluses fell off my hand. Like my whole like top
Damn.
layer skin fell off. So it was like I was peeling calluses off one day. I was like, oh my God, like,
Sure.
and it took, I want to say it was like 33 or 34 days before I even touched a bass because I was just like scared to death. When I got my first therapy session I did at home, like seriously, like my arm was pretty much locked like this, and I could move it like down here and up. That was it.
Oof.
Since then I've gotten all this back, and I'm missing some straightness in it. Like I'll never be completely straight again, but I'm I'm struggling a lot with it actually right now. I started back to work this week, um,
Right.
and I used to work with Quinn. We used to build
That's
awesome
right.
cabinets back in the day, and it's they've been really cool there. Like I can't stress how nice those people are to me, and like to keep my insurance going and not being there for 3 months was amazing.
Nice.
Amazon would have been like, you can't drive my truck, you're whatever.
You're out. Yeah.
So like, props to good people for taking care of me. And then yeah, I mean, the therapy, because like I broke it at the end of the year, so you know to get any therapy I'm having to pay full price for now, because the deductibles aren't covered because it's the beginning of the year, and it really sucks. I think they should have sort of a thing with insurance, like a year from the injury,
Sure.
regardless of when. Like if you busted it at, you know, December 29th, and you were in the hospital, like that should carry over till the next year because that's ridiculous. Um,
Absolutely.
so thank God for the internet and some really cool people to help me, figure out how to get through this. But yeah, it was just a consistent fight, and every day was like, I mean, it took a while to even like touch my head. Like that was a huge day. Like, oh my gosh, I touched my head. And then
Nice.
the day I could, drink coffee. And the music thing has been rough because I feel playing at such a good level for myself. Like I was really on point, working really hard, and like the Saved by Alien stuff, I can barely play right now. Like I'm still learning how to play it again.
Sure.
The plate changed a lot of where I feel I can set on the instrument. So I've got this like floating elbow thing I've gotten going right now, which I'm not like liking, but I'm hoping that eventually the pain level subsides enough to where it's like I can rest it on the instrument and not be a thing. Um,
Nice.
yeah, they say 6 to 9 months, uh, possibly for total healing. So maybe like around 4th of July, it should feel pretty good. Um, it's it's there's a couple things that really, like I'm a very spiritual guy, and it made me have even a more connection with that as well as dedication to it. Um, like in the sense of how quick my life changed and how drastically um, everything I loved disappeared. Like, and the thought as a musician, did I just play my last note? Was my reality for a while.
Right.
And because I didn't know if I was going to get back the movement for the slapping or any of that stuff, I mean, everything was up in the air. So that really makes you grateful for what you get. And I'm really, because I've haven't lost this yet, and I hope I don't, is a enthusiasm for things out of this. Even the bad shit. Like there's always going to be like this really bad situation we get in as people, and I don't think anyone should compare themselves. Like no one should be like, oh, at least I'm not that guy that broke his arm that plays bass. You know what I mean? Like you could be that bad. Like I don't want to be that guy for
Sure.
anyone. You know, and I don't want you to be that guy either. Even if it's like, like there's this like really cool. I think his name's Travis something or other, and he is I think he was a Marine or an Army guy, and he got all his limbs blown off by IED, and
Damn.
his wife didn't leave him, and he's got this really amazing outlook on life. But one of the things was like your trauma. Don't compare your trauma to other people. Like own your own trauma. In the sense of like I'm not going to say, well, it could have been worse. I got this habit. I'm going to sit there and be like, you know what? It was what it was. And I need to learn from this and accept that. And it's also like with that acceptance comes some really beautiful things of a gratitude and um like I don't want to say like because I'm not like happy all the time or anything like that. It hasn't like not like kumbaya whatever, but
Sure.
like
Sure.
we only get so much here, so little time,
Yeah.
and I used to joke around because I had this really cool music teacher who basically said to me, it's like having trouble with this piece, and he's like, well, how often do you practice? And I'm like, dude, like 2 hours a day, 2.5 hours a day, 3 hours a day, like all the time. I live with my bass, I sleep with it. He's
Right.
like, that's your problem. Like,
Huh.
what do I have to do to be good? And so here's what he told me. He said, do you know he said, do you know Stevie Ray Vaughan? I was like, yeah. And he's like, well, kind of how would you describe his stuff? And I didn't really know what he said, but I kind of like, oh, busy guitar player, this, that. He's like, yeah, totally. It's like, do you know BB King? I'm like, yeah. He's like, well, what about BB King and how he solos compared to Stevie Ray Vaughan? It's like, well, he's like smaller in the notes, like one note to 60 of the other dudes. But they're both good, right? Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
totally. Not about what you play, it's about how you play. So that was the first like, well,
For
okay.
sure. For
And
sure.
then he said the difference between a lot of musicians is there's a lot of people that practice and then there's people that perform. That's two different things. So I took that when I left that day and said, well, I'm going to perform every note I ever play again, and
Nice.
if I was going to play a minor scale, I was going to play the best minor scale you've ever heard, and I don't practice scales. I practice a lot of scales, but I don't practice scales like you practice. I practice scales and I groove on my scales, so
Right.
there's music in there if you want to use it, kind of things. But what I'm getting at is like that was a side of where I am now. Now it's like I play every note like it's my last, you know, like I
Hell
don't
yeah.
want to, you know, um, and that's why I was like, cool. I was glad to do like work for you because I was like, okay, to actually like, and that was so difficult because I sit down and I'd start into it and my hand would swell up and cramp up. And I was like, oh, done for the day. So I must have listened to that song like 1,000 times before I even played a note,
Nice. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
then, because I didn't have the time because I was like, if I sit there and try to figure it out, I can't do it. I know I'll be like down there and I'll figure out some cool, and then my hand will start to swell up and I'll be done. So it was like I was waiting for that day, like that I could have an hour and a half to 2 hours of playing. You know what I mean? And most of it, like again, was just punching some things in, but getting it right. And then my sax player showed me how to move things. He's like, dude, like that's really cool you did it that way because that's awesome. You can do that, but then he shows me how to move the note over. I was like, oh, like all that time, but hey, it was better editing the way I did it. So, but I wanted to like there was so many nights that I would like listen to that. I was like, all right, get ready to go, and I'd start in. It was just like, no, like
Yeah. Yeah.
ain't gonna happen. I was like really glad you gave me like some time with it. And I know you weren't in like a big hurry, but like I wanted to get that back to you so fast. And then at the same time was just like, fuck, like I can't get the take I want. Like, and that took some time. It took 60 days from the break to where I started to play again. Um, and I'm still I'm 3 months and change post-op now. Um,
Hmm.
Surgery was on 11/11. Um, Crazy day, similar
Wow.
number, 11/11. You know, and so yeah, I'm still healing, and it's really hard with the music thing. Like I know I'm better than where I'm at right now because just like my hand won't let me do things.
Sure.
Uh, Today, like I couldn't do a full 8 hour day at work, and that bugged me. I got like 5 in before my hand started swelling up, and I was like, you know what? That's it. That's all you can do
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
anymore I'm damaging myself. And
Sure. Yeah.
like today, I got to play for like maybe 40 minutes together, and I've been playing that 5 string, which I don't even normally play 5 string, but I've been playing 5 string because I've been trying to figure out this like um the way we so like you have scales and stuff,
Right.
and
Right.
that's kind of what I'm doing. Um, Here's
Yeah.
the
Give
fun
us.
theory today.
Yeah. Give us a
Uh,
sample.
so um, so like let's say so I have an open E, right, or an E here, and that's like because there's the low B, here's an E. So if I'm thinking, let's just like think like if you're in the key of G, so you got the E minor, and then beneath the E minor, that A is the Dorian, and then beneath that you've got like the dominant 7 or the Mixolydian. So what I've been working on is kind of memorizing these blocks
Nice.
and knowing everything that's going on in between it, and then doing, like I told you, I tried to practice a little bit more musical. Turn this up just slightly. So I'm gonna go kind of for you because that thing gets in my way still. So I've been doing like arpeggios.
Nice.
And just trying to get my hand back. And then uh, so I've been working on that stuff really slow, right? And then because the slap and all those things, I'm trying to get that back. So I've been doing, like kicking with the metronome and stuff, but really slow, and be like, first I play with the fingers, and then the slap, then the double thump,
Nice.
and then the double thump with the pop. And then if I can do it, the quad. So that one's taken some time and still kind of
Sure.
hard to get that.
Sure.
But yeah, so I'm doing slow stuff like that, and then working on like Motown stuff. I forget the end of that line, but like simple little things that normally I was trying to do all that, like this kind of thing, and I don't have it yet because like I can play like that for 10 minutes, and then my arm goes to crap. So, and then I finished our like I haven't been able to play it all the way through, but I finished this concerto that we're working on about a whale, the Blue 52. There's a whale I heard about that is the loneliest whale on the planet, and it sings in 52 hertz, so more with this crazy things. And so in my head, there, because aquatic animals, there's a lot of them that they die from trauma, not from old age. So like sea turtles and stuff, they, will get like something bad will happen to them. They open them up, and they have all their organs are still chill, like awesome, but they're dead, you know.
Huh.
So in my head, this fish was like left over from Atlantis, and it's singing a warning, and uh, and
Huh.
and so I've written like there's a song called The Pod, and it's about the the whale pod, and everybody's all cool and happy, and then there's a really dark section where something happens, to the pod, and that's the disaster. And then we have a song called Blue 52, which is the whale finding itself, which is just all these crazy changes, and it's about 8 or 9 minutes long of just like musical schizophrenia. And then we have the last tune's called Awakenings, and it's um, I wrote Awakenings um, like right after I got good from my head injury. I had a head injury in 2014.
Huh.
Fractured my skull, had a major concussion, and
Damn.
forgot to play. Because uh, um, like driving, all these things I couldn't do for a long time. So I finally got driving, and I was working with that drummer with the duo, the Saved by Aliens. At that point, I just go over there and just play, and I we get maybe half an hour, and I get tired and have to go home. And
Right.
but it was funny because one day he comes to the house and he puts this CD in, and I'm listening to it, and I'm like, who is this bass player drummer, man? They're amazing. Like that's and he's like, dude, that's you. And I was like, what? So yeah, he'd pretty much recorded all this stuff, and so it was weird because it was like, well, if I can play like that, then I can play like that. So it's kind of like, um, yeah, it was weird. It was weird, like hearing yourself and not knowing that was you. You're like, what?
That would be
Did I
odd. That'd be strange.
It was. But it sparked the writing for basically what would become the DIA sessions. And there was a song, it's called Halo of the Sun. If you Google Saved by Aliens, Halo of the Sun, there's some YouTube videos of it. And
Nice.
that song was basically the first major solo bass piece I ever wrote. And it was about healing. And you can ring into whatever you want about the halo of the sun, but I think it's well, it's two things. There's a religious side of that, which I won't get into, but there's also this day that there were so many chemtrails in the sky. I looked up, and the sun had a halo around it. So that was kind of where the initial name of the track came from. So, but
Nice.
if you go to Say by Aliens Bandcamp, there's a little bit of our music on there. Awakenings is on there. That's I believe we put a couple songs up from our Positive Vibe. There was like a head shop down the street from my house that we did a gig at, and it was our first gig as a trio. So
Oh,
it was
nice.
really
At downtown Inglewood.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Prior to that, it was William Foster Jr. Playing drums for us, and me, and um, then just me, and then William Foster Jr., me, and there was like, oh God, what was his name? Kyle something or other, and there was another kid named Evan, and we had this like quartet. It was just amazing. And then they were like, well, we're
Nice.
not getting gigs and we need money, so see you later. It's like, oh, so we
Damn.
kept it going, the two piece. And then when I found a horn player again, this Troy Thill, I met him through, I don't know if you know Judge Roughneck, Cocktail Revolution. Gosh, was it Future Jazz Project? So there was this really brilliant guy out here in Denver, and he's like my favorite musician out here. His name's David Dinsmore. He owns a really cool shop called Brows up in the
Huh.
Highlands, and they do eyebrow threading and eyebrow and facials and stuff. Really cool. If you need to get your grooming on your face, they're a good place to go.
Nice.
Um, they had, in fact, the Cranberries lady. She actually came and got her legs waxed once.
No way.
From yeah.
Nice.
So he has a really amazing band. They're called I want to say it's the Lost Dog Ensemble. I know it's Lost Dog in there, and they're a Tom Waits tribute band, and they're phenomenal. Like, he is so damn good. Like, if you haven't seen that band, like, go see them. Like, they have a huge band.
Nice.
I want it's like 7 or 8 people, backup singers, the whole thing. But he does like the best Tom Waits stuff, and yeah,
Nice.
they did the Wire theme song. I was like, do that, walking through the garden, whatever.
Huh.
And they played Chocolate Jesus. I was like, damn, and they killed Chocolate Jesus. I mean, they shouldn't. That's a bad way to say it, but they just like, um, again, they're one of those bands you see and you're just like, wow, everybody is just a stellar player. So my sax player is actually in that band with him.
Nice.
And so I used to be his hair department, used to cut hair for him for a while, and at that shop. And so we started this reggae project, and we took Prince's Purple Rain, but redid it all reggae. And so the band was called the Denver Dub Collective. And I was fortunate enough to get the bass chair. And
Nice.
and so we did Purple Rain from front to back. Started with the Rasta guy, dearly beloved, we are gathered here to get through this thing called life. And I mean, really, like, I think Prince would have been like, you guys really did well for it. We had DJ Nikki, was somebody that just spun records instead of some of the other things. So we kept it a little PG at sometimes, But I was the guy that got to play bass for it, and it was some of the cool stuff because I wasn't a big Prince fan, and I'm not going to claim to be. I could tell you all his records or all that stuff, but I can't tell you, like, when I listen to him, it's a musical education on a lot of levels, as well as it's like, I don't know, there's just like, oh, that's cool, I would totally not turn that off, but I'm not like having a bunch of records. I couldn't tell you all
Right.
these stories about him or anything like that. But so he was like, yeah, we got this project, we're calling it Purple Dub, and I didn't know what I was getting into. I just went over there. And so he puts up the first thing, and I play through it, and I was like, oh, that's cool. It's like, this section here, and it's like went through like double time thing, and awesome. So cutting through the tunes, and we got to Computer Blue, and so I was having trouble like coming up with something. He's like, you want to hear the vocal? I'm like, oh yeah. So he puts the vocal on. I'm listening to it. I'm like, dude, isn't this Prince? And he's like, yeah, dude, didn't you get it? Purple Rain, Purple Dub. And I was like, oh wow, this is like a whole thing. And so Dove's Cry was one of the cooler bass lines that I got to do on that. Lot of space in that, and really, I did a lot of 5-string work on that and left a lot of big holes and things. Venus Cruz did Purple Rain, and honestly, it's like one of the coolest songs I've ever gotten to record on. She did it in one take and left. Like, she's that much of a badass.
Damn.
Anyone listen to herself. And like, if you don't know Venus Cruz, like, you should know Venus Cruz because she's just amazing. And she's such a nice, sweet, just awesome person. Very blessed to have, like, hung out with like these people. And so yeah, so we did that record, and gosh, I can't think of his name. Jim something or other. He plays in a band called, I think it's that something boy, but he basically took it, the solo. He did the guitar work, but the solo on Purple Rain, he used the whole dang room to play it. Like, he was doing the guitar, like, I don't know, like the whole body was into it. Just like such a cool guy. God, I wish I could think of his name. Jim. I know I'm just going to think about it, and it's going to come right to my brain as soon as I get off this with you. It's going to pop up. But I met them all through Pinochle, my old band, and
Nice.
we got to do. We toured fairly extensively. I got to dip my toes in both coasts.
Nice.
We had a pretty torrid road life, like, I learned how to hustle and grab the t-shirts and the CDs and try to sell stuff at the gas station. Oftentimes the gas station money would make us more than the gigs. And sad to say, but it's some people know how to support and other people just don't. And
Right.
and you never know what you're going to get after, like, out of a venue. The funniest thing was, we were playing in Warrensburg. I think, yeah, it was Warrensburg. And Warrensburg, Missouri. And we got there, and it was just like, we're going to have another, like, lame night. And so I was
Right.
like, well, what's the competition, man? Like, where's everybody at? It's like, well, there's quarter beers up the street. I was like, okay, so, like, the frat world is up there, cool. So I was like, well, where can we get something to eat? He's like, okay, across the street, they got give you guys a deal. So I walked in there. I was like, this place had a urinal with dollar bills all on the bottom of it, and some of them are glued down and some of them are not. And so people would, grab
Oh
the pissed
shit.
off. Yeah, and I'm just like, oh, it's nasty. I'm like, I don't want to here, dude. Sorry. So I'm
Right.
on the phone with a friend, and I hear this like, dude, you got to come in here. And I look and I go around the corner, and there's Mr. Belding from Saved by the Bell sitting there with, like, these people around the table. It's like, what? So it's like, dude, go get the camera. And so we proceeded, like, I hanging out talking to Mr. Belding, and like, what are you doing, man? DVD sales plummet. Why are you on this tour? And haha, I'm Dick, whatever his name is. So he
Right.
asked
Right.
us what we. Well, I'm living my dream, man. I'm a touring musician. I'm
Hell yeah.
starving, whatever. And so this is like probably day 5 or day 6, and you're starting to smell. You've had maybe a hotel or maybe 2, but it's not like you're having the best time, but you are, at the same time.
Yeah.
You're like,
Yeah.
oh, best. Um, so, I was telling them, like, like, we, I forget where we stopped, but it was like, middle of the night, wake up, and the door flies open to the van, and there's this silhouetted road manager, and he's a short dude, but it's just funny because the light was right behind him. It looked like, like the angel.
Right.
There's
Right.
door opens. You're like, what? He's like, dinner. And I'm like, oh, cool. What are we having? And then he says to me, he says, your choices are hot dogs, and throws it at me.
Oh
And I
wow.
started eating my hot dog. I'm like, your choices are hot dogs, dude. That's been the tour. It's been your choices are hot dogs. Venue 1. You don't even get your food. Before you have to play, your choices are hot dogs. Second night on the road. We're all sleeping in the car. Your choices are hot dogs. Tonight, your choices are hot dogs. So I told Elding the story about your choices are hot dogs, but hey, dude, it's cool. I'm having a good time and stuff. And so he,
Right.
laughs about that, whatever. And so we go up the street, and there's the quarter beer place. So I, at the time, have a blue mohawk. I'm fairly tattooed, and don't look like people from Missouri. And
Right.
so there, you know, uh, like, frat people everywhere and stuff. So I'm like, all right, I'll go buy beers for people, and so I buy beers from all these people. This dude comes up to me, he's like, hey man, love your band. Don't even know you're gonna go see you guys play. Blah blah blah. And he's drinking with everybody, like, buying his shots and stuff. And he's
Nice.
like, yeah, I'm not drinking at this point. Those are the no's of touring for me, because bad things happen. So I always had to drive the car at the end of the night, so no one got in trouble. But
Right on.
that night was my turn not to do those things. But so he tells me at one point that he says, "Don't worry, I got your back." I was like, "Huh?" And he's like, "Yeah, that table over there wants to fight you." And I'm like, "Dude, what?" And I was like, apparently one of the guys thought I was trying to hit on his girl. So I walked
Oh.
over there with a couple bucks with quarter beers. Hey guys, see my band play up the street. And then I saw, trying to smooth stuff over, just get dirty looks from, like, the whole table as I'm handing them their beers. I'm like, what you gonna do?
Right.
Well, I look over and I see this couple that's as out of place as I am. And I start talking with them, and they were really nice. And they're like, yeah, we'll come over and hear you guys play and stuff. So we start, we finally get back to the bar and start playing. And we're playing with this band, Anachanda. Uh, by the way, they broke every, like, code of musician rules on the trip. Like, we let them stay at our house when they came and toured Denver. We were, like, in their hometown, and we're kind of, like, hinting around, like, so places to stay, and they nobody brought up anything. And I was like, wow, that's cool. Remember that next time you guys are in Colorado, like.
Right.
But so we're playing, and then they were gonna play after us. So we're playing, like, Sublime covers and all this stuff. And all of a sudden, I noticed that there's all these people outside of the venue, but no one wants to pay $1 to get in to see us. And that's our money. You get the door, the dollar.
Right. Right.
like, dude, let him in. Like, at least we can play for people. This sucks. Either way, we're gonna make $5 or we can play for people. So they let everyone in. I'm like, there goes my door, whatever. So we finish the set, and the other band gets mad. I'm like, dude, like you were gonna bring in anybody anyway, so whatever. We got people here.
Right.
And so afterward, that couple gave us $100. And they're like, we didn't want to put that in the tip jar because we wanted you guys to have it, not them. And I was
Fuck
like,
yeah.
wow, a hotel. Actually, if it wasn't for those people, we wouldn't have made it back to Fort Collins because we were basically on fumes in the van. In Fort Collins, we were home that night and we were playing with Pepper. And so that night
Fuck
we
yeah.
were like, oh, we're gonna do good. We're gonna make money because we were basically piggybacking a lot of the Pepper shows throughout the state when they weren't on Warped Tour. So we'd have a crappy night and die on our own, and then we'd have a good night with them, and then a horrible night even worse, and so on and so forth. They were
Nice.
really cool. Them and Slightly Stupid. We actually played with Slightly Stupid at the Lions Lair back in the day.
No
And if
way.
you know Lair, that's small,
Right.
and yeah,
Totally.
and one of the coolest shows I think we ever got to play. Well, that band we got to play Red Rocks, so that was definitely like a dream come true and stuff. But as far as
Nice.
like and things like that, we did the album release for Closer to the Sun, the Slightly Stupid record,
Yeah, yeah.
um,
I remember that
which
one.
that was like my favorite of theirs. They definitely took a turn after that. But they were really nice guys, Miles and Kyle. They actually came to see us out in San Diego when we played out there. I got
No
a
way.
picture of them.
Fuck yeah.
So yeah, we played with I think Thicker Than Thieves out there, which we jumped on one of their tours through Arizona because like for some reason they couldn't take it because of law issues or I don't know something like that. But I mean, it was a real cool network of bands that were in that sort of like reggae thing back in the day. Um,
Right.
kind of like we all knew each other. Like Pinochle never blew up, but I felt like it had we we had a lot of good material. You can check them out on Spotify. Our last record kind of flopped, but I really loved making it. I kind of got to do whatever I wanted on that one. So there's actually a
Nice.
video that we did that's animated. So if you look up Pinochle Violence on Your Doorstep, um, you can see an animated video we did on school shootings. A couple things with
Hmm.
that. We had to redo that a couple times because of just how dark it was. And then we ended up going with the darkest version of it because of the statement that it was making at the end. So if you haven't seen that, definitely check it out. But if you listen to it, you'll notice that the soundtrack score is way louder than the music. And the reason we did that is because the subject matter that we broached needs to be way more important than music, and that was a big thing that I made sure that we did because I didn't want to jump on a bandwagon for such a horrible circumstantial events of gun violence
Right.
because you know that's a very heated topic and throwing our 2 cents in. I didn't want to be doing that for vanity or anything like that. I wanted to do it for the purpose of what it was supposed to do, which was be a sort of a protest song, but more like a wake up. And and so yeah, it definitely like it's dark. There's some political making fun of in there. There's things like that. The
Sure.
band members in the video don't look anything like us. That was another choice I wanted to do. When they first showed me my character, it looked just like me. It's like no, I'm a skinny guy, so the character that's playing bass is large. Doesn't look anything like me. But that was the reason, is just because like again, uh, I don't want somebody to turn this around and say my reasons for doing that was anything other than what it was.
Sure.
Um, and that's weird to have to think that way. But this day and age, I feel like that's probably important. You know, a lot of people take things the wrong way. And I
Sure.
think words
Sure.
are definitely are cataclysmic these days for people. So I mind mine very carefully, and not that I'm hiding anything, but just in the sense of not trying to give somebody ammo to fire at me. You know, I'm just a guy trying to spread positivity and you know, not be a jerk. You know, if you cut me off
Hell
in
yeah.
traffic, would rather wish you a nice day. You know, I think that, and again, my arm has taught me a lot of things like that, like holding on to these stupid things and really what you let live in your head. Um, there was no, after thinking that thought of I'll never play again, I've worked really hard to never think that again. I believe whatever you put in that brain, again, like that headspace we talk about, I'm really trying to be collecting around positive things, being around positive people, positive, um, being positive, and also like even the things I don't dig, I really like. I'm happy for that person that made that happen.
Right. Totally.
Uh,
It's a good
so yeah,
attitude to have about things.
yeah,
Hell yeah, man. This has been quite an episode, and I've really enjoyed just hearing all your wisdom as a musician, and all these other things, and how resilient you really been through with breaking the arm, and it's crazy. It's not your normal arm break. You shattered it, right? And I didn't know the whole story until now, and it's really cool that you still figured out ways to play. I went through a similar thing like 5 years ago. I got in a snowboarding accident, tore a ligament in my shoulder, and I was like, I'm not going to be able to play drums anymore, or at least the same. But it really pushed me to be like, what can I do? So I was practicing drums with one hand for like a month, and I was like, maybe I'll just be the next Def Leppard drummer. But I think what makes people
uh,
good. What's that?
Rick Allen, they kept
Yeah, yeah,
going.
yeah.
Yeah,
But I think what makes people really
that's
good.
a band. I mean, dude, Hysteria, amazing record, dude. If you haven't heard that, you should listen to that.
Yeah, I'll have to check it out. I actually haven't listened to it, so
You really,
no,
man?
no,
No, dude, that's like an '80s gem. There's uh there's there's a lot of bad music from that era, man. I won't give you, but like there's some really good
agreed.
stuff.
Yeah,
You know, gotta look past the hair.
yeah, man. Well, shit. And I think having a positive attitude is for everyone right now, just going through these crazy times, and it's really important, and I really respect that about you. Really looking forward to continue to work on some more songs. We got a whole I got a whole album of stuff for you, and yeah, anyone who's listening to this, if you sign up for our email list, you can check out kind of like a rough recording of Old Friends, Old Habits. That's the next single that we've been working on. I haven't thrown the bass on yet, so I'll let everyone know. But if you're on the email list, you can uh, you can check that out. And yeah, Jonathan, thanks for coming on, man. It's been really cool. I
It was
really
so
What's that?
it was really nice hanging out with you. Don't get to do much speaking these days with COVID and isolation. You know,
Right, right.
yeah, I've been really happy to work on your work, man, and I think that it's how should I put this? I'm very psyched that you let me play in your record, on your music, in your record, and let me put
Thank you.
notes on. Really cool of you, and yeah, man, that last tune especially, really, really loved working on it, and so I really hope you get what you needed out of that for me. So, and yeah,
Totally, totally.
but yeah, thank you again for this, and I really appreciate it. And if I could
Yes,
just plug
sir.
that, deadbyaliens.com. We are on TikTok, we are on Instagram, and we are on Facebook. I'm not the best at keeping them current, but the idea is um, bass education is really important to me, because I think the instrument's really young and needs, um, it doesn't need me, but I need it. And
Sure,
you know,
sure.
I'm kind of throwing my 2 cents on out about how I got where I'm at with it. So if I can cut some time off you to be a better player, or understand that instrument better, is my goal for you. I would love more amazing bass players and amazing music happening, and so if I can help out the bass community, I'm all about it.
Hell yeah.
So yeah, so look for my little lessons floating around on techniques and things like that. And I've been recording a lot of things lately because of this thought of we don't have a lot of time. So I'm trying to get more stuff out there. So I'm looking for collaborators, more people to work with like yourself.
Nice.
And, you know, to not only get my own stuff out there, but for lack of a better word, and please don't take this the wrong way, but to make all you guys sound a lot better by having a bass player that knows how to support. Definitely feel like I don't put ego in what I give people back for their music. I feel like I play for songs,
Hell yeah.
and you know, I'm the guy that learns your lyrics and wants to express what you put out as a musician. It's not how should I say it? I whatever you're saying, I just want to be your oh yeah guy. Yeah, that's right. Good
Hell
stuff.
yeah.
So,
Hell yeah. Yeah, definitely worth checking out. I might have to check that out myself. Definitely trying to learn bass here soon. I've been learning guitar, so I think next is bass for sure. But I gotta say, man, when I saw you live, definitely I think right away I was like, I need to work with this guy at some point in some capacity because I think personally that you're one of the best bass players out there, especially in the Denver, Colorado area.
thank you so much.
Yeah,
So,
man. All
well,
right,
cool, man.
Jonathan.
I appreciate you. Stay safe, everyone. Be a good human. So,
Hell yeah.
thank you. All
Peace
right.
out, guys.